Last year, the Devils got Jake Allen from the Canadiens. Can history repeat itself? Because there's another Jake currently with the Canadiens that might be on the Devils' radar. His name is Jake Evans. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, College Hockey Club play announcer, Devils Rider Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. We have another silly season discussion on our hands, and it involves another player that the Devils could possibly pursue at the trade deadline. Last year, the Devils made a trade with Montreal Canadiens to get Jake Allen added to the roster, and the Canadiens were in such a rush to get rid of Allen that they retained half of his salary. Could history repeat itself? Because there's another Jake that might be available. His name is Jake Evans. That will be saved for the second and third segments of today's episode. But to kick off today's show, we're going to talk about the New Jersey Devils' upcoming matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. We will also hear from Tomas Tatar. The Devils are in Mile High City to take on the Avs. The last time the Devils played Colorado was back in December, and unfortunately, the Devils got shut out 4-0 at the Rock. And I have a horrible feeling that Mackenzie Blackwood is going to be the starter in net for this game. Keep in mind, Blackwood has already recorded a shutout against the Devils when he was playing for the Sharks. Ultimate revenge. You couldn't have scripted it any better. Ever since being dealt to the Avalanche, Blackwood has seen new life. He has a record of 14-7-2. He has a .921 save percentage. He has a 2.17 goals against average. He has recorded 2 shutouts. And even though he has no chance of winning the Vezina, he's seen his name in the running alongside Jacob Markstrom. But we all know that Connor Hellebuck is going to run away with that title. But the silver lining is that Blackwood hasn't really been all that sharp in his last few game appearances for the Avalanche. In the game against St. Louis on February 23rd, he allowed 3 goals to go past him in a losing effort. And then on February 7th, shortly before the break against Edmonton, he allowed 4 goals, but the Avalanche still won that game. So if I had to make an educated guess, I think we're going to see Blackwood get the start for the Avalanche. Just fair warning, can't confirm or deny that, but just putting that out there. The Devils are fresh off of a win against the Nashville Predators in which they shut out the Preds 5-0. It was a good response compared to their other game against the Dallas Stars in which they lost 4-2. Came out flat-footed. I'm curious to see how the Devils respond against the Avalanche just because I really do want to see the Devils string together a few wins. It's been a minute since they've won like 3 games in a row. And if they really want to be taken seriously throughout the league, they need to start winning more consistently. At least they're still in a playoff position. But it's time to take your game to the next level because there isn't another break to bail you out. So after the Christmas break, the Devils were struggling. They went into the 4 Nations break to reset everything. But now this is where things really start to pick up and teams start to get set in the standings. And we're just a few weeks away from the trade deadline, and you're going to get a good sense of what direction a team is trying to go in. Obviously, they want to be a deep playoff team, but they're still missing a few pieces. We'll see what happens. Okay, the Devils recently held a practice in Mile High City. Let's listen in to what Tomas Tatar had to say post-practice. Take a listen.
Since we come back from the break, getting an opportunity for you here to play with Nico, what has it been like for you? I know you guys have had a lot of success in the past, and you enjoy that. What do you like most about that?
Yeah, it was the first game, obviously. I think we played really well. We got rewarded. I personally enjoyed it a lot just because I'm very close with Nico as a friend as well, so let's make it a lot easier. Nace was with us. I think we're building some chemistry, and we play a sound game.
I mean, one of the things that Sheldon was saying is he wants to give you a little bit more of that offensive opportunity playing in that position, right? Did you sort of feel it?
Yeah, I mean, the role is obviously different being on the bottom six than on the top six. So I feel a little more familiar with that role, but I'll do anything I can, to help the team. So whether that would be, but obviously I feel a lot better up there than a different line.
Yeah, as a group here, these first two games coming out of break, do you feel like you guys have gotten your game pretty well here over these first two games?
Yeah, I think we played a very good game against Dallas. We had some, system cracks, what we allowed, and they scored. But the skate and the energy, and I think we did create a lot against Dallas. We continue the same game against Nashville. Again, there were some system cracks that we, have to work on. So those are not happening because they can cost you a game. But I would rate the overall pretty good games. The last two we played.
You obviously played here a little bit last year, and you played at Colorado a bunch in your career. But do you have to do anything for the altitude? Is it shorter shifts or anything like that, or you just adjust to it?
It does hit you at the start. I think the best recipe for it is short and hard shifts at the start. Ease into it, and as the game goes along, you start feeling better and better.
I'm looking forward to that matchup because, like I said, I'm predicting that Blackwood is going to get the start for the Avalanche. So does he have another shutout up his sleeve against his former club? I really hope not, but I think Blackwood has been performing really well ever since putting on an Avalanche sweater. And we heard from Tomas Tatar, a former Avalanche himself. So there's a connection right there, even though Tatar only appeared in a few games for them, and then he went to the Kraken, and now he's back with the Devils. All right, we're going to talk about Jake Evans and the possibility of the Devils nabbing him from the Canadiens. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Trade Coffee. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that weren't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. As you guys know, I'm constantly on the road. So I rely on coffee a lot to give me an extra pep in my step. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. Okay, in the previous episode, I talked about the Devils possibly reuniting with Kyle Palmieri. He's having a good year with the Islanders, and he's in the final year of his 4-year, $20 million deal. And as we all know, the Devils are in need of some more depth to their bottom six because certain guys just aren't cutting it. Like Curtis Lazar's not really going to score. Paul Cotter's not going to score. Tomas Tatar, even though he was recently promoted to the same line as Nico Hischier, he's not really going to score all that consistently. Sometimes the well can run dry for the Devils, and they rely too much on their top players and also their power play to do a boatload of the scoring. And you could get away with that during the regular season, but come playoff time, especially since you have to beat a team 4 times out of 7 in multiple rounds, that's not really going to cut it. So Fitzy, I'm sure he's on the phone lines right now trying to make a deal. And one player that has appeared on a few radars is Jake Evans from the Montreal Canadiens. Now, courtesy of my boss, Nick Villano of Pucks and Pitchforks, he put an article out recently talking about the matter. I will leave a link to the article in the description if you want to hear his thoughts. Last month, the Athletics' Pierre LeBrun, who has been on the money when it comes to Devils rumors in the past, called Canadiens for Jake Evans their quote unquote top trade target. Evans isn't exactly a top 6 player, but he could be in the right situation. With Jack Hughes playing winger at the Four Nations faceoff, it could make sense to put someone to win him some faceoffs on the top line. Here are some numbers for Jake Evans in 57 games played for the Canadiens. So far, he has 11 goals, 5th on the team, 16 assists, 6th on the team, 27 points, 5th on the team, a face-off win percentage of 52.5%, 5th on the team, 36 blocks, 11th on the team, 83 hits, 6th on the team, a 1.3 offensive point share rating, 8th on the team, a 3.1 defensive point share rating, 9th on the team, giving him a point share rating of 4.4, also 9th on the team. Comparing that to Kyle Palmieri, Evans has 11 less points than him in the same amount of games played. So, what does Evans specifically bring to the roster? Because Kyle Palmieri is a better scorer than him. Well, when I think of Jake Evans, I think of a blue collar type of player, someone who's not afraid to do some of the dirty work. So, for someone like Kyle Palmieri, he focuses a lot on scoring. Jake Evans, he can score a little bit, but other metrics that I'm focusing on is his hits, his face-offs, things like that, because that was dearly missed when Eric Haula went down with his injury. Yes, Haula hasn't recorded a point since God knows how long, but Hala is still vital when it comes to face-offs, doing a bit of the dirty work. A couple years ago, somebody asked then head coach Lindy Ruff, why does Hala continue to play in all the games and yet he can't register points consistently? Well, Lindy said that when it comes to Hala, he gives the team possession when he's out there, and which is vital. And people started to see Hala from a different perspective, including myself. So when I think of Jake Evans, I sort of think of some of the things that Eric Hala is capable of doing as well, which is face-offs, doing a little bit of the dirty work, capable of scoring, but probably not his bread and butter. And another thing that I want to mention about Evans is that he is good defensively as well. He's good at drawing penalties and he is good on the PK. And special teams has been a strength for the Devils this season. So when I analyze Jake Evans, I think that would be a good trade option for the Devils because he's capable of scoring. He has more points than Tomas Tatar, Paul Cotter, Nathan Bastian, Eric Haula, all those players. So I think his scoring can definitely be a bonus for New Jersey, but he can also play on the top 6, similar to what my boss Nick Villano alluded to in his article, because you could put him on the same line as Jack Hughes and it takes the burden off of Hughes' shoulders because as we've seen in the past, when Hughes doesn't really have to focus on the face-offs, it gives him more room to operate. So I think Evans is a versatile player that can play on either the top 6 or the bottom 6. However, I think he'd be better utilized on like the 3rd or 4th line. He's good in the face-off department. He's good defensively. He's a good skater. I think that would be an intriguing ad for the Devils. And when looking at his contract, this is the final year of his 3-year, $5.1 million deal. He has a cap hit of $1.7 million. So he would hypothetically come cheap Now, would it be possible for the Devils to pursue him? That's the ultimate question. I'll give my final verdict in the third segment, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel because it keeps me in tune with sports. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, would it be realistic for the Devils to pursue Evans? Well, here's an issue that New Jersey might run into. Courtesy of Nick Villano, once again, he also included this snippet in his article. While it makes sense to target Evans, even if it's just to add scoring to the bottom six, the price may be something the Devils can't match. Another Athletic writer, Arpon Basu, said the Canadiens are trying to find a trade partner that is willing to trade for both Evans and Joel Armia. The Devils might be interested in that, but probably not for the price. If you're curious, Armia this season has appeared in 58 games. He has 10 goals, 14 assists for a grand total of 24 points. He was teammates with Eric Haula at Four Nations, representing Team Finland. So that might up the asking price just a little bit, because if it was just a 1-for-1 deal, somebody for Jake Evans, I think that is doable for New Jersey because he is a pending UFA. For Armia, this is the final year of his 4-year, $13.6 million deal. He has a cap hit of $3.4 million, and he will become an unrestricted free agent in a few months. So, similar to what I said in the prior episode, this all comes down to asking price. And unfortunately for New Jersey, the well is running dry a little bit when it comes to tradable assets. And I think the two valuable assets that the Devils currently have are Dawson Mercer and Shimon Nemitz. And obviously, I don't think you want to include either one of them in a trade for these types of players, because I don't think that makes you any better if you sacrifice someone like Dawson Mercer. You need to find someone to add alongside Mercer, if that makes sense. The only way I'm willing to trade Mercer in a package is if it's for a big time all-star player that the Devils just can't say no to. But clearly for players like Armia and Evans, two serviceable players, they do not meet that criteria, and I don't think that's going to help the Devils in the long run. If it's a 1-for-1 deal, if it was like Jake Evans for whoever on the Devils, I think it's more doable because you can probably add a late draft pick or something like that, because the Devils don't have any first-round draft picks this season due to the Jacob Markstrom deal. We'll see what happens, but they have some second-round picks. Maybe that can be used to entice a team, but this is a interesting period for Tom Fitzgerald because he knows that he does need to add somebody else to the roster. But the issue that he's running into is like the Devils don't have much wiggle room to work with. They have a decent amount of players signed to long-term deals. They have some other players who have clauses onto their contracts. So someone like Eric Haula for this season, he has a no trade clause, so you can't really include him in any sort of deals. And what prospects do you have that a team would be interested in? That's just the issue that the Devils are dealing with for the time being. And I've spoken to a few people. I talked to Pierre LeBrun and also Frank Saravelli while I was in Boston, and I asked them, like, hey, give me some good news. will the Devils get another player onto their bottom six? And they said that Fitzy is trying, but right now, nothing to really report on. But Saravelli told me that it's still relatively early, even though the trade deadline is still a few weeks away. I think once we get to that week of the trade deadline, I think that's when things will start to pick up a little bit more. So, final verdict. I would love to have Jake Evans added on to this roster, but similar to Kyle Palmieri, who would you have to give up? And what's the asking price? That's my overall thing. If it's like a draft pick and a low grade prospect, then by all means go for it. But for Jake Evans, he very much well could be a rental. You got to keep that in mind because both he and Armia are going to be unrestricted free agents at the conclusion of this season. So you definitely don't want to break your piggy bank for those types of players. But let me know your thoughts. Who are you willing to sacrifice in order to improve the Devils roster? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on podcast streaming service. Hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Thanks for listening. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.